Content ID.
Oh yeah,
Hi,
yeah, totally. Yeah.
Don't demonetize us, please.
What
Hello.
monetizing?
Yeah. What monetizing from our 7 cents? 7 cents. Hello and welcome to Name Not Found. I'm Chris.
And I'm Colin. Am I supposed to say it like that, or can I just like? What if I just open every show with, I'm Colin. I'm really tired. I don't even. Well, I guess we'll talk about games and whatever. Just yeah.
You want to just have like a whatever dad mentality of however you do.
Whatever, Dad. I'm Colin. I'm talking about games right now. Or God.
Whatever, Dad. I'm gonna go play Super Smash Brothers.
Oh boy, if you only knew.
Memories.
How true that is. Oh boy.
So how are you, my friend? How are you today?
I'm actually doing great because we're not recording this at midnight East Coast. I have a day off. What is that?
I don't know what that is.
Shout outs to Jesus for giving me a sweet 3-day weekend.
I thought you were going to confess your love for Christ at this point in time.
Yeah. No, if Christ gives me a 3-day weekend, he's got my support, man. I'm on board. I'm ready to go.
That's your cause for religion. And, it's just like, oh, there you go.
I mean, Holy Wars, 3-day weekend, it's really a toss-up. But
yeah, I'm a Christian for the 3-day weekend.
No, in all honesty, I'm doing great. How are you, man?
I'm doing good. I also have kind of a day off. I had a few auditions to do, but that's pretty much it. But listen, I complain, but auditions is me being at home and working for 2 hours and then just dicking around. Just not really doing that much.
Yeah, I have zero empathy for you. Absolutely zero.
No, I mean, yeah, I know you do. I know you don't, but it goes from you know me. It goes from I have those days to I've been working for the last 18 hours and I don't know what I'm doing with my life.
Yeah.
But anyways, we're here to talk about video games. Surprisingly, I completely forgot that was our purpose. But we're gonna talk about a movie first, as you probably figured out from the intro. Star Wars trailer just came out today.
Oh my god!
It's a teaser intentionally, because you know nothing of what's going on. It's like things, Star Wars, awesome.
You know what I realized? I saw somebody on Reddit post it. First time we've heard Luke Skywalker's voice in character in a Star Wars movie in 30 years.
I know. You know what? He really, the voice I heard when he said that, he really captured, I still have Luke's voice, but way more gravelly and old. Like, it's just great. And also, if he just looks like he did in Force Awakens, then it's good. He looked awesome. Oh my god. Like, so good. So, just a utter fanboy, I'm excited, because it looks like there's going to be space battles, and I love space battles, okay, so I love Star Wars. Did you have a favorite, do you have a favorite Star Wars movie, just in passing? I don't know.
I mean, I swivel around a little bit, because I love Jedi for the resolution. I know empirically, Episode 5,
Empire Strikes Back.
Revenge of the Sith is just like, not Revenge of the Sith. Wow.
Empire, yeah. Wow.
Wow.
Comment section.
Empire Strikes Back. I know. It's fine. Everything is going to be okay. I know that Empire Strikes Back is like the best movie in terms of like how it's crafted, but then also like New Hope, like the way they introduce the world in that movie is great. And I think the prequels have their moments. I mean, the story is just like whatever. But, the prequels have their really interesting spots. I love I don't love some of the CGI, but I love what they do with atmospheric CGI. I feel like a lot of movies have been drawing from them because you got to remember those were back in like 2001 when that really wasn't a
Have
thing.
you ever seen the model building that they do at ILM for that stuff? Like the
Yeah,
ships and
actually,
stuff?
scratch that. That is a disservice to the model builders who built all that shit and
Yeah.
shot it up close, like they do in Lord of the Rings.
Oh, yeah.
They actually did like a ton of that for
All of
a lot of.
Isengard. All of Isengard,
Yeah,
dude.
yeah, it's all a small scale model, which is such a cool way to do things. Yeah, I'd probably have to say, oh God, it's well, actually, let's talk about The Force Awakens a little bit.
Yeah.
I thought that movie was really good, except for the pacing. Like,
Yeah,
I felt like there was no breaks, there was no breathing room. It was just like hitting you in the face with Star Wars, which is great, but like, it just like scale it back a little bit. I feel like that's what they're gonna do with this one, with Episode 8. Like, it seems like it's gonna be like we're gonna get a fucking Jedi training montage, and I'm so hyped.
Only if there's
But-
80 music in the background going, "Live to win," and just like that.
I mean,
Rocky 3 training montage.
yeah, that's exactly what it needs. It's,
Dolph Lundgren comes out looking like, I forget his name, but he just comes out with boxing gloves at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how it goes.
that's not,
Yeah, Force Awakens was great. I can't wait. This one does look like it's gonna have those darker moments and those really good like oh shit moments. But not like oh crazy things are happening. It looks like the pacing is going to be set and they're building towards the crescendo, which is the last one. And I always love that movie in the series because there's like so many little details you'll go back to and go, oh, okay, I see that. And also,
yeah, they're setting the stage.
Yeah, and they left a lot of mysteries unanswered in the first one, and like who the fuck is Snoke? The big guy in chair who fucking Andy Serkis. Andy Serkis is awesome.
Right.
And who are the Knights of Ren? Who's Kylo Ren's followers and stuff? What happened there? All that stuff. There's a whole bunch of things, But in general, so we can talk about video games and still talk about this. Well, why don't we go into a little bit of a Star Wars gaming, if that's okay with you?
No, that's fine, because the reason we want to talk about this is you've been playing the Star Wars MMO, right?
Yes, I have. I picked it up recently. They were doing a like, if you join back up, and also if you just played, they were doing like an XP like times 50, like 50% bonus of XP, so you can level up really fast. And I play it. And I realized, like, I played this game when it first launched, and then I stopped.
Jesus, how long ago was that?
Oh, God, I don't even know. That was, I was still in college, so I would say at least it was freshman year of college, so 4 or 5 years old, at least.
Jeez.
I played it when it first came out. They've updated it a lot since then, but the key thing is, I will say this as a beginner, I dislike MMOs in general, and I'll just say this is, like, I don't like the grind as much, and it's not like an RPG grind, because in an RPG grind, you're, like, going towards something, and I feel like there's more of a completion. Some of them are like, fetch quest, kill this many enemies, do this thing. I'm like, no, fuck you. I'd rather just kill enemies till I know I'm good enough and go, but I don't like them that much, because also I think there's laziness in the story, in a lot of MMO stories, because it's so big. But this one I like. It's done by BioWare, so they do Mass Effect, and for those of you who don't know, Mass Effect, Dragon Age, stuff like this. And everything, this is what gets me. Every single moment in that game is voice acted. Every single thing has a choice in dialogue that your character actually talks and responds to. And every class has its own individual independent storyline that plays through. So there are like, I think 4 or 5 classes, so like 4 classes per side, because you can play the Sith or the Jet or the Republic, and so you play either 4 classes, I'd give or take, and each one of those 4 has its own storyline, and you get to feel individualized. So it actually gives, for the first time in MMO, like replayability, because I'm like, I have to make another character because I want to know what his fucking storyline is. It's cool. It's good pacing, combat smooth, but this is the argument I would say. I don't think, because Star Wars, as much as I know people disagree, but there's a lot of books, but it's not gonna like overwhelm you with lore. The MO of like Star Wars in general is like, okay, here's the light side, here's the fucking dark side, okay? They're gonna fight, and you're going to be part of it. That is pretty much what Star Wars in a nutshell is, more or less, right?
Right.
So, and that's what I feel, and the reason I like it more, and I was talking to a friend of mine, and we were talking about this briefly. So which Final Fantasy have you played? All the Final Fantasies by any chance, or what have you played, so to speak?
So I have played Final Fantasy 1, so Final Fantasy.
Mhm.
I've played Final Fantasy, and which is Final Fantasy is then you would know in the American Final Fantasy 4 is Final Fantasy.
Right.
So then it was all put back together near the end. I have not played 2 or 3. From what I understand, they're very similar to 1, and I just hadn't gotten around to it. I've played 4. I have not played through the entirety of 5. I have not played through the entirety of 6. I've done 7. I've completed. It's so weird. I've completed every area of 7, but not in one go, and like on different save files because I got the Chocobo glitch.
Yeah.
I beat 8, part of 9, beat 10, 10-2. Tried to play 11 and 14, and thankfully I didn't get into them because MMOs destroy lives.
Yep.
Not that you shouldn't keep playing this MMO. Beat 13, and I haven't touched 15. So 15 is like the only game I haven't touched. I've like had some exposure gameplay to every other Final Fantasy.
Okay, so I'm sure you love it. And to be perfectly clear, when you say you've played Final Fantasy VIII, you've beaten Final Fantasy VIII how many times?
My first playthrough was in 5th grade.
Uh-huh.
Then I came back to it in 7th grade. And then in 8th grade, I went through a phase where I beat it 3 times in 1 year because I was really upset with something. So I just kept playing through it. In high school, I think I played it through a total of like 4 or 5 times. In college, I didn't really play through it, but then I played it through on emulator once, and then I haven't played it since. So that's like 11 or 12. I actually haven't played the game in a while. I might go back and play it again. But that's like 12, 13 playthroughs, I think.
Yeah, so needless to say, you're a Final Fantasy VIII fan. I would say
a little bit. Not the only reason why I picked up Kingdom Hearts. It was the only reason why I picked up Kingdom Hearts. So.
Well, to get back to Reed Cox's story is like I was complaining. One of my good friends plays the Final Fantasy MMO, which is completely a different beast than normal Final Fantasy. I can't like truly compare them because it's a way bigger, convoluted story because they have to make it bigger. Still keeps up the Final Fantasy effects where it's kind of the gorgeous looking graphics and all that stuff. But I feel like because of the Star Wars, the reason I like, and I've played them both, and I couldn't get into the Final Fantasy MMO. I just couldn't do it. It was just like, I got there, I got to like level, I got to where people say it gets good, and I went, I don't like this at all. This is not, no. And I think what really got me with it was that there's like, Final Fantasy's MO is sometimes, and we said earlier that the Final Fantasy does a good job of it early on of like slowly unveiling the story in their events and dialogue, and you see that in 8, you see that somewhat in 7, though 7 sometimes you go, what the actual fuck is happening? And also Cloud, but I'm not going to talk about him, because I could go for days about how he bothers me sometimes. But I've just made so many enemies. But the thing I get is, like, with Star Wars, I just, you're like, okay, good, bad, and then the rest of the story you're just getting a part of, and it's individualized story, right? So you're one dude influencing an empire or a great struggle, but you feel like the story is individualized, But meanwhile, in Final Fantasy, you're like, okay, you're part of this huge thing, and you need to know this shit, and how these things interact because of this and that, and if you don't know this context, none of this is going to make any sense to you, and then we're going to make our names so complicated that you can't possibly fucking remember them offhand, and I actually have to look things up. Meanwhile, I'm sitting here, I'm like, oh, that's the planet with the huts, and I just go there because I need to go kill this dude. Okay, fantastic. And I'm a lover of really good stories. I have, like, giant fucking bookshelf full of complicated things. I read Lord of the Rings every other, like, couple of months because I love it. But there's just something about Final Fantasy stories that didn't get me. And I'm not just saying that. World of Warcraft is still just as guilty of this, by the way. World of Warcraft is worse in my mind in some ways because it's pure fucking text reading, and I can't do it. But
how much WoW did you play?
I am the last character I have, and I checked on this before I was talking about this, is I played up to level 70, so that would be like Deathwing, and this is right before I didn't get to, so Deathwing, Mr. Pandaria came after, and the most recent expansion. So I didn't get to the most recent 2 expansions. So I played up until Deathwing, so more or less, which is Cataclysm.
Okay.
Cataclysm. Did you play any WoW before? Have you
Got to level 20. I realized how much time it would take to get to level 60 and actually do shit, and I was like, nah, I'm gonna go play FF8 again. Because I was like 17.
So, but you're not a big MMO person, right?
Not really. The only big multiplayer game I ever played was called Gunbound, and it wasn't really an MMO. It was like a multiplayer shooter-ish game. Like I would play big online games, but never like community-focused, like person-to-person type stuff. I just never really had an interest in it.
Okay. Yeah, I feel the same way about MMOs, but something about this has drawn me in. I don't know 100% of it. I think it's partly the story, partly of my relation to the world. I do love Star Wars a lot because I love space. I love space battles. Space anything, you know me, I will go for it. But I don't know what drew me in, but Star Wars games in general are kind of hit and miss. I mean, if you've seen them. Have you played Star Wars games before in general? Like, we played a few as kids.
Yeah.
Like,
oh my god, I played Rogue Squadron, Rogue Leader, like my fucking life depended on it.
Those games are awesome.
Those were hard games. The gold medal, everything was fucking tough.
Oh yeah.
What else did I play? I really liked I didn't play enough of it, but I played KOTOR because it wasn't mine. My friend Dave had it, and we would play it at his house.
Which is what the MMO is based off of, the KOTOR and the KOTOR 2, which are 2 of my favorite games of all time, so that might also be why I love it.
And we could talk about how BioWare needs to get back to its roots with Mass Effect Andromeda, because it's not really doing what it needs to do there with story. And spoiler, not spoiler, a disclaimer, I have not touched Andromeda, mostly because I couldn't even finish 3. It just like totally undid all of the things it set up, and it made me really upset. Total side note. What other Star Wars games have I played? Motherfucking Shadows of the Empire. That game is fuego. Doesn't hold up though. Game sucks on a replay. I like looked back at it. I was like, ooh, this game was
the old school like shooter first person, right?
Was it N64 old school third person?
Yeah. I remember that. Yeah.
I played the old like SNES ones on emulator. So the Star Wars, Return of the Jedi, you know, all that stuff.
Realistically, those games are super difficult, by the way. Like,
oh yeah, no, those games are just like total hack and slash. Like, they don't make any sense with the canon. It's like, why would you be Leia running and jumping around and shooting stuff and climbing a giant tower? Whatever, it's cool. It's a hack and slash game with Star Wars skin.
You know, that's
Star Wars.
That's what
buy
I feel
our
like
cart.
Yeah, and buy our merch. That's always going to be there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I played a lot of Star Wars games. It always drew me. I mean, I played not so much like early on. Like Rogue Squadron was pretty much my introduction. Actually, no.
Holy shit, dude! No, pause. Remember TIE Fighter?
That's what I was gonna say because.
Oh my god! I watched you play that game for days. It was so cool.
The first game I ever got, because my first computer was like an old school Macintosh, and my parents for my birthday got me a joystick and X-Wing and TIE Fighter as the game, and I sat there for hours playing that game, and we would go on. It was just so good because the cool thing about that game, and it was super realistic, you could move your shields to the front and back and sides of your ship, and it was really cool. That was probably my first introduction. Some of my favorites are the KOTOR series because I love the story and the combat, and it's a great RPG. I think I really love. I played the Jedi Outcast games, which are kind of the best lightsaber combat you ever find. It's Jedi Knight, Jedi Outcast, Jedi Knight, Jedi Academy.
Oh yeah, I remember those games. I never played them as much. I just had seen them at like SGDQ, AGDQ, and I remember Bryant playing them when I was younger, but I never really like had a concept of what they were.
Yeah, I mean, it was a great kind of third person. You're a Jedi, can use force powers, and excellent lightsaber combat. It was all about the multiplayer because you could get 16 people swinging lightsabers, and they would actually clash, and you would have realistic lightsaber battles. It was cool.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know it had multiplayer.
It did have multiplayer. It was kind of like a Quake version multiplayer, but it was third person with lightsabers, more or less. And you could do like flips over people, do combinations. It was very, very cool. And the cool part about that game is it was super moddable. So people got to, and it got really popular around the time. And I'm not a fan, but came about the time when Advent Children came out. So everyone made mods to add the clashing noises from 7 of Advent Children, like the tinging noises of actual swords and the actual weapons, so you would actually just have regular sword fights and go as crazy as you would in Final
that's
Fantasy.
So sick.
Yeah, and of course there were blasters and other things. Nobody ever used them. You have lightsabers. Why would you use a gun when you have lightsabers?
I'm not sure.
No, well, now I'm kind of like, I would be a bounty hunter. If I wasn't I would just be a bounty hunter, because that's pretty bad.
Nope. Samurai lightsaber. Let's fucking go.
You beat that guy. You beat that
Yeah,
guy.
no, total milady samurai lightsaber. Don't care. Still fucking awesome. I don't give a I don't care.
Would
don't
you
care.
have a fedora? Just please
Yeah,
have a fedora.
I mean, it comes with the territory. I am not only like, Nick, if you have a katana lightsaber, which, by the way, don't even get me started on why the curve would never work. But you know,
Physics.
like, yeah, physics, whatever, inconsequential. You have to wear a fedora.
Yeah,
Like, it's just,
that's true.
yeah, yeah, that's where I would go with that.
I'm sorry, I'm just imagining like the Duel of Fate song from fucking episode 1, that song, and then you walking out with a fedora and just going, "Milady," just that.
My Sith Lord. just
Name
like
of the episode, My Sith Lord.
Damn it.
That's what you did. This.
I
did
did
this.
this. I know. So it would be no, but the fun part is you don't do that. You save it until it gets to the scene where the laser gates close, which again makes no sense.
Yeah.
We can talk forever about why that makes no sense. Then you milady the Sith Lord,
Exactly.
because you can't do anything.
And furthermore, it's also when you cut his lightsaber in half, which also, by the way, makes no sense of how he still had. I'm not going to go into it. Just happened to separate at the right moment so he can still use one half of it. Okay, fine. Cool. That's fine. Anyways, this could go on for days. I'm trying to think of other Star Wars games, but I don't know why. But it's also been, we say we love a lot of them. There have been a lot of them that are, oh boy. Just like, why is this happening? I mean, there's the dance game that they did with the Kinect for Star Wars, where you're dancing as with Lando Calrissian, which is weird. There was the one with the Kinect. Have you ever heard of the Kinect Jedi thing? Have you ever seen that? It was like Star Wars. It was Star Wars Kinect. That's what this whole thing was.
It was like Let's Dance,
Yeah.
Just Dance with Star Wars.
They did that. Well, that was part of it, but there was also a Jedi-based part of it where you had like a lightsaber. You hold your hands like you were holding a lightsaber. You could swing, and it was right when they were. You remember the E3 when they announced the Kinect, and it was like they were doing all these cool things. But when they were tried to announce everything, the Kinect clearly showed during E3 as they tried to live demo it, it was not holding up. Like it was delayed reactions and shit, and. This one was the greatest one because they were like, oh, you can be a Jedi Knight. Guy comes out, he swings his hands, has to swing them twice more, and on the third time swings it, and then all of a sudden, about 3 seconds later, the character on the screen swings it, like on a live E3 demo. And
those are always the best. Oh god, live E3 demos, you can see why they're moving away from them, because they're just chock full of the things that nobody wants, of a PR firm wants to see, like, there's no sound in this video. They're just like totally understand that it's scripted because the person isn't like holding the controller right and the guy's still doing all this crazy shit. And you're just like, come on.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
well, of course we're going to unpack all of it. It's on the internet.
Have you seen, like, speaking of bad, like, we'll just go off on this tangent because E3 is fun. Have you ever seen, like, Ubisoft is so guilty of this, like, terrible voiceover, like, pretending to be real multiplayer matches. Like, you've seen, like, they did the Rainbow Six Siege thing. Have you ever seen that? Like, it's...
Oh, the one where it's like...
Oh, I'm coming in. Come through
like,
the
over
window.
here in Alpha Bravo 6B. Blah, blah.
Yeah, it's like that stuff. And I'm like, no one talks like that on the internet. First of all, if you're on the internet, it's like, dude, kill that guy. What the fuck, man? It's that. That's literally what's happening. Or there's just a random 12-year-old going, I'm sorry, we're gonna fucking kill that guy. That's what's happening the whole time. That is, no one, A, sounds that clear over the internet, and B, no one ever talks in military, and if you do, I immediately mute you. If I ever hear you talking like that, because I'm like, I don't need you in my life. I'm here to relax. Go away. Like, Ubisoft is so guilty. They did it for Rainbow Six Siege, and then they did it for their new game Wildlands, which was the fakest fucking thing ever.
That one! Oh man, I remember. I saw that one. That was so bad.
It was terrible. And they were like using terms, and I'm sitting there going like, yeah, by the way, this is totally overdubbed. Like, you probably just brought a couple of your guys in to talk and narrate the whole thing. Nobody was actually playing this at the time. Clearly. That's fine. You can still do that. That's okay, but don't make it sound that wooden, man. You guys are not having any fun with this. It's like, oh, we're gonna be super badass. I'm like, no. Do stupid things. Don't... If you're going to be realistic, have somebody accidentally falling off a building. Well, I fell off a building. We lost the match. Cool. Bye. You know, Ubisoft is terrible with that. I love watching E3. Because not for the great games, because I saw some great games, but for the mess ups, they're so good. They're so good.
Definitely. I mean, the thing about E3 and it's like definitely for the mess ups, but also I know I'm not going to see anything good. Like, not like good as in not good games, but I know it's just going to be a trailer, and it's just going to be this, like, nothing earth-shattering is going to happen, so I'm just in it for the popcorn, you know what I mean? If something bad happens and I can laugh, great. If I see some batshit crazy, ridiculous reveal, cool. It's still just a trailer, it doesn't mean it's a good game. Have we seen Final Fantasy VII redone yet? No. Like, it's, you know what I mean? Like, how long ago was that? It was like 2 years ago, where they're like, it's the PS4.
Yeah, and they showed like 2 seconds of gameplay that they had, and I'm like, what is that I'm looking at right now?
Right.
Like,
right.
Although I will say, like, one of my favorite things was E3, right? Was everyone freaking out about Kojima's, when he announced Death Stranding the first time, right? When he came out and showed that trailer with, what's his name? Walking Dead and Boondock Saints, what's his name? You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I follow Hideo. He's hanging out with him all the time. It's like Norman Reedus. That's his name.
There it is. When they showed him, it's like, I bet you this game is going to be cool, okay? But when everyone freaked out over it, I'm like, literally showed nothing. Nothing.
I was still hyped.
Look,
I don't care. I was like, I know it's not going to show anything, and the game's like 5 years out. But I mean, it's fucking Norman Reedus with a fetus on a beach. Like, that sounds like batshit and crazy. It's insane. Like, that's your tagline: Norman Reedus with a fetus on a beach. Game. Like, sign me up. I don't know what's happening. Give me $60. I don't care. That looks so batshit crazy. I have to play it. I have to figure out what it is. I don't know what it is. I want to know what it is. And then they have Guillermo del Toro is in there.
Listen,
like, just
side note. Anything with Guillermo del Toro in it, I will go. Like, that is my fanboy. I love Guillermo del Toro. He's my favorite director ever. So, he's my favorite human, okay? Just, anyways, go on. Keep going. Just, I love him so much. But,
yeah, that's all how I feel about that.
Don't get me wrong. Like, by the way, I'm now debating whether it should be Masith or Norman Reedus with a fetus on a beach, and I'm like, that should not be the title because that will not go over well. But still.
No, probably not.
Good possibility.
Probably not.
I don't know though. I mean, is there anything you saw at E3 before? I know we were talking about Star Wars, but anything you've ever seen at E3 before that immediately, like, getting it, like, just anything that you ever saw that did that to you, or are you?
You know what was the first thing, and it was the most disappointing trailer of all time? This was an old trailer.
Mm-hmm.
This was when the GameCube was first released, and as a hype video, they showed Link fighting Ganon in GameCube footage for the new Zelda, and they're like, GameCube Zelda being released 2004, and I was like, I want it!
What?
I want it now! And I was like 11, I wanted it. I wanted it really bad. It looked like the Smash Bros. Melee version, and then they made Wind Waker, which was like why a lot of people were initially, you know, Wind Waker is still very well received now, but, you know, back then it was like, they were like, what the fuck is this cartoony crap? We want this, we want Twilight, we want this, which it actually turns out Twilight Princess is not nearly as well received as Wind Waker is. I mean, it's still like, they're Zelda games,
yeah.
They're pretty damn popular, but I would say Wind Waker is more popular because it made a lot of really great design choices that are seen in its handheld games. I mean, look at the way they've reused that style and sort of reinvented the, you know, a different side of the Legend of Zelda series. Almost like their 2D side is now more Wind Waker-esque in terms of its art style. So even though, like, I was upset initially, I eventually ended up loving it, but it was like a really interesting, like, I got hype initially, then like playing the game, I was like, what the heck? Or seeing the new stuff, I was like, what the heck is this? And then it turns out to have created like a whole other, subgenre of the Zelda series.
Right. I can see that. I mean, that's the thing. When Nintendo's like, I can see when they announce a Zelda. Now, I think I have hesitation if after Breath of the Wild, right? When they announce like, oh, we're gonna make another one, right? I'm gonna go, okay, but what are you gonna do? Because you guys did this. It's kind of like when they made Ocarina, right? And then they go, we're gonna do something else, and I'm like, how? Like what are you gonna do now? Because if you make Breath of the Wild again, it's gonna be it's gonna be repetitive. It's almost like when you reach that top tier of something. It's like, because Breath of the Wild, I've watched it played. My sister's been playing it. I've watched it played. Really good. Okay, and we can go all day. I'm just saying from my opinion, and I don't like Zelda games. We've talked about this. It's really good. I don't know how they're going to do any better. I really don't. And there are flaws with it, obviously, but as far as E3 goes, for me, I intentionally don't get very hype over it because especially with what I do for work now, because I see the inner workings of this stuff. And
yeah, that'll turn you off real quick.
I know how it is, and actually one of my roommates is working in marketing for Sony. So like so he sees all that stuff. He's actually going to E3 to help with their presentation stuff. But the interesting thing that you see, I mean, I got really hyped this year, and it wasn't a letdown. I'm still playing it. Was Horizon Zero Dawn. I thought that was a great trailer because here's the thing. It was clearly mocked up, and that battle does not exist in the game, by the way. Like, it doesn't happen. It was clearly just what they made. But what they did was the smart thing. Instead of having just it there and happening, they took the voice actor who plays the main character and had her basically just do lines for the trailer. Like oh, I need to go do this. That dialogue does not exist in the game. I'm like, but that's a fantasy game. If you have the actual voice actor playing this game instead of some stupid dude narrating of what you're going to do, on stage, he's like, and now we're going to go do this. I'm like, just have the character telling you, because you need to make it into at least a cinematic experience. Don't fucking fool people into, oh, this is a real part of the game. I'm like, no, this is a cinematic experience, and you're showing me,
Yeah, I feel like they just need to be more upfront with it. I feel like they're just not understanding that their audience is well, I mean, we're coming from a perspective of gamers who've played for a while, and I think a lot of other people sort of echo that sentiment. Also, you're seeing E3 change. It's becoming less and less that and more fan-based. It used to be like big deals would go down and only press, only this, but now people just do their own events.
Yeah.
E3 is really not necessary because you can do a live stream.
Exactly.
That's what Nintendo has been doing with the Directs. Sony did it with the Pro. Xbox is going to start doing it. Because why leave it up to a third-party convention besides its name recognition? Like, we all know, it's like culturally relevant in that way.
Yeah.
And it would be bad for them. And not them as in game companies. I mean them as in folks who run E3 to let that slide, because you can ask a lot of people and they know what E3 is, which is huge in this day and age. You have name recognition. That's fucking huge. So I'm liking what they're doing with letting fans in. I think it'll lead to a more friendly experience that's not like a sales pitch. So yeah, it'll be really interesting. But what I'm really curious about is, look at Microsoft, right?
Yeah.
When was the last time you saw a new IP from Microsoft that wasn't shit?
So that's a really interesting question. And
because think about it like this. We're going to come back from a break in a second, but I want people to think about this for a second. The last big IP that did anything with Microsoft, and you could argue it wasn't even that big, was Sunset Overdrive.
Mm-hmm.
And that wasn't received very well. Before that was Rise. They've been trying to ride off the back of Halo and Gears and Forza and like all of these things, but they just don't have the IP that Sony's shown with Horizon, Resident Evil, motherfucking Nier. Like, there's so many Persona.
Yeah.
Those games that are coming just as only Sony games. So we're going to talk about Scorpio.
Yes.
When we come back from a break, but let's see if we can come up with ways Microsoft can get back those IPs because they are really lacking in it right now.
So we'll come back from a quick break and we'll talk a little bit about Microsoft.
Sounds great.
Hello, friends, and welcome to the break. This time I've got a bit of a guest today. Colin's with me.
I get to be in the break?
No, you go sit in your corner right now.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I actually wanted you here on the break with me because I'm tired of talking by myself and feeling weird. Just talking to nobody and everything and plugging things like the shill I have to be, So, all that type of jazz. As you know, this is a podcast, and we do live and breathe by people sharing the show. We're not marketing it to everybody. We don't pay people to do this, as clearly by our view count. But we would really enjoy it if you guys share the show. If you have friends you think would like it, please tell people. That would be wonderful. And also, Colin, they should follow us on social media, yes?
Definitely. So you can follow me at Hey I'm Bad, and you can follow Chris at YouTube Def Unstable, DF Unstable. And the real big reason we want to share is we just want to create a community. Chris and I love talking to each other, and if we get more people to talk with us, talking about games, we will have succeeded. That's what we're trying to do.
If you guys have a thing like, hey, could you guys talk about this? Tweet at us, comment in the video. Please let us know. We would love to interact with you guys that enjoy the show. That would be really important to us because that's what we want to build. It's a community. So share it around. Talk to us. We'd love to talk about games. We've been doing this since what? We were like 6? So
since we were like 6, and we're going to keep doing it. So, all right, everybody. Thanks for listening. Back to the show. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Name Not Found. We're going to get over here because the Scorpio and Scorpion are similar sounding names. I know, that was really bad. I was like, should I do it? Should I not do it? I decided to do it. So Digital Foundry released the specs for the Scorpio, Microsoft's mid-console revision to the Xbox One. And the specs are pretty fucking stellar. I mean, this looking like, honestly, it looks like a mid-range to like upper mid-range PC.
Right.
This kind of shit it's running, which is nuts when you think about it. It's going to blow the PS Pro out of the water. And the big takeaways here is if you are playing a game, any game on there, you can choose performance mode, which is 1080p 60 frames a second, or your, visual mode, your like high fidelity mode, which is 4K, sometimes 60, sometimes 30, depending on the game, I would assume. So you're going to get some benefit from playing old Xbox One games on it. You're going to be able to switch whatever games you're playing to a performance mode if you don't have a 4K TV, which is, I think, a really big flaw with the PS4 Pro, because I've heard a lot of horror stories of not understanding what the settings do. Some settings don't do anything. All that's left is to see what a price point is. But, Chris, this is sort of a really big departure for consoles. We're really used to seeing very defined generations. What's your thoughts on what Microsoft is doing here?
So my main feeling about this, I'm mixed. I understand that like this is kind of like, okay, we're updating this, right? And we're adding 4K with this new technology. Now, this depends on the price point for me. First of all, it depends on the price point. If you're going to sell it for, because it's 4K, new technology, all that stuff, if you're going to sell it for like a $400, $500 mark, I say fuck you. Okay, because my main thing is I feel like it's slightly a disservice to the gamers that originally bought your console, all right, to go on this ride with you. Now, I know Xbox One games that you have will play on this. They said it will. All of them will. But my question is will they continue to do a dual release process, or will they eventually just leave the Xbox One behind, first of all, if they'll continue to support it? That's something I need to know, because if they all of a sudden be like, well, we're just moving straight to Scorpio in like 2 years, I'm like, well, that's shit. You shouldn't do that, because
especially if it's going to cost what looking at the specs, it's going to be $500 bucks. I mean, unless they're going to lose a fuck ton of money on this thing, Yeah,
exactly. I mean, I don't know how they're not going to lose money on this thing if they want it to be competitive, but I mean, and also, here's the thing, you're releasing this new console, We said this before the break. What do you have that is going to draw me to
Yeah.
buy it?
That's a great question because Halo has fallen off. It's sad. It's not like Sonic fallen off, which
We can go in
But-
Sonic Boom.
but it's not Halo 2, Halo 3 levels.
Mhm.
It's not there. It's not like stop everything, play this game, which was what those games were. I mean, I didn't even have an Xbox, and I stopped everything to find my friends and play that
Yeah.
game. You know, I played through every campaign mode, played through Halo 1, Halo 2, and Halo 3, never owned an Xbox.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chris, for playing through the campaign with me. But, you know, that's just not the case anymore. To be completely fair, Gears 4 was great.
Yes.
I heard they did a really good job with the game. I've played a bit of it. Mostly was just Horde mode, which was really fun. Oh my gosh, that was so fun. Co-op Horde mode is
yes.
as fun as it was in 1 and 2 and 3. So I think that they did good there, but
What is there? I mean, we did talk about E3. I will wait to see E3 to see if they have anything new, because if maybe they took a tip from PlayStation when they announced all these new IPs, you know, and all this stuff that they're bringing to the PS4. Maybe they'll come out with something. I'm gonna reserve my judgment against them as much, but for right now, I say if they were to release this now, right, even at the price point I'm talking about, like say $350. Okay, $350.
wow, that would be that's cheaper than that's about as cheap as a Switch.
Right.
Just to put it in perspective, I mean, Switch is like
But
$300,
let's
so
say
like that would be
350, 400,
immense.
right? 350, 400. Even then, though, I'm looking at it and I'm like, okay, I already have a PS4. Why go over to that just for 4K? Okay, okay. I've played on 4K. It's beautiful, but not worth paying that much money for right now, at least, because the price point's way too high on TVs. First of all, second of all, in my opinion, there's nothing. It was my argument against the Switch to begin with. I'm like, I didn't see a lot from them besides Zelda, right? I didn't see anything that was
Right.
interesting. I'm like, why am I going to pay even $350 for something that I do not have any faith in the products that are going to come out for this piece of hardware? It's one thing to have a PC where I've put my PC I built myself. It cost me $3,000 to put this thing together. That's also because I'm an editor and a sound designer as well, so I need that shit. But at the same time,
Write it off on your taxes as a work expense.
I totally
yeah.
do and did this tax season.
And Chris totally didn't do that as his lawyer. He would not ever disclose anything about his taxes on a public podcast, you know, whatever.
But
But no, here's the thing though. That brings up a really good point. What are they doing? Look at what Microsoft is doing with their first party games and the Windows 10 experience. You can play them on PC.
yeah,
So if I've got a good PC, why the fuck am I buying your expensive box? Like the only use case I can think of is somebody who travels and is, you know, a power gamer and wants something convenient by their TV.
Right.
You know, they want to use the TV they've bought to display games and then they do other stuff on their PC. But when you look at, you know, other stuff, that is a slim base of people.
right.
With the Sony's install base growing, like I would say, yeah, I'm a little biased. I've probably played more Sony games and Nintendo games than Microsoft games over the years. But, I mean, purely striking that out, when you don't have any IPs that I give a shit about, when you're looking for a really small use case and you're already cannibalizing yourself with PC releases, I'm really just not seeing what needs to, like, what's going to sell this thing.
Exactly.
Like, it's going to really come down to the IPs. Like, it's really going to come down to
That's what it
that.
comes down with every console, because everyone gets all hyped about it. It's going to get these graphics and stuff. It was like, case in point, when the PS3 originally launched, do you remember that? When they had all this crazy bullshit on the original PS3 giant brick? And they had, it was for $600. Okay, first of all, which is ridiculous. All right, and then they had nothing for the system. Nothing at all within the first year, and it took like 2-3 years for them to recover from that and start pushing out good titles for the PS3. But it's the same case. It's like they're pushing all this technology stuff that I'm not convinced that we need right now. What I'm more convinced in is, dude, you are as much as you are a hardware developer, you are a game developer. You are a game publisher.
Yeah.
You are a game maker.
Yeah.
And if you leave that out, you're just making expensive, less useful computers at this point. You know, it's like, all right, cool, I'll do that, but I can't really surf the internet, and maybe I'll watch Netflix on it. Cool. Well, I can do that from my PC or my laptop or my iPad or my phone. You know, it's one of these things of, I feel like as much as I argue that a game console is also more prevalent now because it's also a home entertainment system, but
yes, we were talking about this on episode 1. Call back. Like, without that utility and use case, like, I feel like consoles really need to be pushing more to be the entertainment hub. Like, Roku, snag that market. Apple TV, snag that market. Google Chromecast, snag that market. Like, they put something into your home that you already had, but they just couldn't make the deals,
exactly.
You know? Like, it's really frustrating to see that you couldn't stream YouTube from your... Well, PlayStation's a little better about it, but, like, from my Switch, I want to stream YouTube to my Switch.
Yeah.
I want to just be like, press a button, have my account, my thing on there, bam. So I can like have a little tablet. I click it into my, because it has a really cool HDMI converter where it just pops up on my TV when I put it in. I don't have to switch my input. I don't have to do anything. I put it in, bam, it's on my TV,
Right.
which is really cool. But I would like more utility with that. And it'll be really interesting to see how they go there. Because right now, Google, Apple, Amazon don't want to do that.
Right.
They want to keep their shit there so they can sell not their hardware. They could give, I mean, let's be real. They could give less of a shit about their hardware. Maybe Apple's the exception there because they overprice every bit of their hardware. But they care more about the software.
Yeah.
So if they can see more people who have a Switch, or actually, here's an interesting thought. It might be actually a really good market to get into because who is buying game consoles for the most part? Parents.
Yeah.
Who are using the game consoles? Kids. It's a market that they don't tap into nearly as much. They do, obviously, because they're so fucking massive, and YouTube, you have unboxing videos and all that shit. But it'd be another way to get at, you know, probably a really valuable source or a really valuable, you know, market for them. So maybe that's something they could think about, or I could be talking out of my ass.
Actually,
I'm gonna go with option two. Gonna go with option two.
Actually, to prove your point, though, Sony launched. You can literally subscribe to a television service that has television channels on your PlayStation that you just stream from the internet, and it's literally like TV. You can get ESPN, you can get NFL, all this stuff just on a PlayStation 4. I signed up for it. You get like 110 channels, and if you pay extra, you can get Showtime and HBO, you know, that type of stuff. And you can get all of that and actually have television service. And I mean, if you add on to YouTube just launched their television service, like you now can watch shows on that and subscribe to that. Like, it's now becoming internet TV, and that's a slow market that's slowly growing, and it's probably, I mark my words, in the next couple of years it's going to be an explosive growth. But the thing is if these consoles can capitalize on the entertainment factor beyond just games and remove them from, oh, well, this is a console that you can do everything that your computer does from the comfort of your couch, and you go, okay, that's 100% awesome. You know, that's what you need to build. But what I see with this is like, okay, you're running off the idea of graphics and you know, the quality of this and that. Well, here's the thing. Good, you got the quality of graphics. What games am I going to play on it? What are the other factors that make this thing useful to me? You know, and, you know, I haven't seen Xbox, you know, talk about what they're doing beyond just like, we're releasing Scorpio. You can have a custom controller. Here's the next Gears of War. We're thinking about another Halo. We're thinking about these things. And I'm like, I don't care, because you're doing the same thing over and over and over and over and over again. And it's just not as appealing to me, you know?
Yeah, it's kind of going to be the, you know, that, again, going back to Giant Bomb, which, you know, I just listen to all the time in the car, so I can't help it. Very interesting topic of, you know, the whole Microsoft Corporation looking at Microsoft games. You know, they might be not seeing them in such a favorable light, because Xbox 360 was one of the last times they made money. And even then it wasn't as much as they thought. The live subscriptions are great, but like, you know, if this fails, if this isn't good, you know, it would be a real shame to see it, but we could very well see Xbox get out of the gaming market and
just go straight to Windows 10 gaming, which they could definitely do. I mean,
because they've got the install base there. They're the only game in town.
Quite literally.
To use a pun. Yeah.
But that's a fair point. But there is also a story, by the way, just to get into it, that you brought up that goes on game sales, and I find this inherently hilarious. It does talk about game sales. I'm not gonna say anything. It is about the Switch. Could you tell me the basis of this story, please?
Verve reported very simply, the Nintendo Switch has sold less than the copies of Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild just for the Nintendo Switch. This is not counting the Wii U.
So
the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild for the Switch has sold more copies than the Switch. So think about that for a second. There is a sad fucking kid or a parent like who doesn't want to buy the Switch yet that's like holding on to that case like, the Switch will go down. I'm just going to wait for it. And then I've got Breath of the Wild right here. Or there's some weird, crazy person who bought 12 for their collection, like one to frame, one to play, one to give to their girlfriend, Zelda, and then like all of this other stuff. Like, think about all the use cases. Like, who are these people? Like, what are they doing? What are they doing? What is happening? What is happening, all, Chris? I need you to restore my faith in humanity.
I love the idea that kid bought to save Zelda just for later, as if Zelda's not gonna be around later. Like, he needed to buy Zelda now. Like, it's never gonna appear again. Like, it's not just gonna be in a store or anything. Second, like, you joke about the guy collecting it. There's a dude that's doing it right now.
Oh yeah, there's totally a dude. I joked about it, but then as I thought, I was like, oh, actually, there's probably a million people who have every copy of Zelda like kept away, and they're like, well, time to add one more to the collection, and then I'll play it too. So there's two right there.
There's two right there. It's unopened box, mint condition. I'm like, that's a thing, okay. But yeah, I find that just hysterical because I'm just sitting there. I'm like, how does that even work? I don't know if I've ever actually heard of this before, where it's just like, people bought the game. Now, it'd be one thing, they wouldn't report this if it was like, oh, well, it sold maybe like a couple hundred more copies. It's like, no, probably a significant number was sold, and it's kind of like, what the fuck is it?
To be fair, it's a really fucking good game.
Oh, no, it's a great game, but how would they know it? They don't have a Switch. Like, I mean, it's a great...
That is true. Maybe, here's a fun thing. Maybe a company or some, like, shady thing bought a ton of them so they could try to crack it just for shits and giggles. Or some rich guy who was bored. Honestly, that's another possibility. Somebody who was bored and decided to make people upset and bought, like, too many of them just because they could. Yeah,
there's so limited copies. He's just like, I'm going to buy 100,000 of these. Okay, fine. I'm like, what the fuck, man? Why? And you just see him, he has a room, and this is my room full of Zelda. And it's just cool.
No, this is my Zelda room. It's a room made out of Zeldas. You can walk all over them. Here they are.
He just puts tiling down in his kitchen that's Breath of the Wild. Like, it's just kitchen tiles made out of Breath of the Wild copies. Oh, man.
And here we have our Breath of the Wild tile set.
You can also have it as backing, as a backsplash on your kitchen. Oh, it's really good. We put it in a subway tile type of thing. Okay, I watch too much HGTV, by the way. I do that 100% of the time. So, like, you'll get every once in a while from me, like...
Now I know you work from home.
Yeah. It'll just be on, and it'll just be there. And also, it's just, like, every once in a while, I'll be in the booth, like, at an actual company and throw down, like, an HGTV reference, and everyone looks at me like, don't judge me! I like seeing beautiful homes and what they do to renovate them. Okay? All right?
I love looking at shit I can't afford. It's lovely. Yeah. The existential crisis of, where am I in my life? Why am I still at my parents' house? Shouldn't I own property? Guess not. Gonna keep on working.
My favorite thing, though, is the HGTV memes about the house hunters. Have you ever seen them? It's literally like, I work picking up garbage, and she and my wife works thinking about thoughts about money. And it's like, our buying price is about 1.8 million. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, because you...
Goddamn white people.
Because you see these guys, like, they're saying, well, I work as a mid-range system admin, and I do this. Our price for a house is about 1.2 million. I'm like, they're doing this for you because you're on a show. That's exactly what's happening right now. But, sorry, we just got off onto my new podcast, which is HGTVY. But no, I'm kidding.
Starring Colin! I probably wouldn't be on that podcast. Not because I don't like. I mean, I don't dislike HGTV. I don't really like it. It's just sort of, and so
It's a guilty pleasure of mine. I can't say it, but it's just funny for me sometimes. There is also, speaking of just funny stories that we were talking about with the Switch. So I really want us to talk about and kind of come up with thoughts about a new game that's kind of been announced. Only the title has been announced, okay? And I want us to figure out what is this, okay? So the Dark Souls publisher is teasing a new project with its
from software.
And its tagline is "Prepare to Dine." And it's like, so is it going to be a Dark Souls game about a chef? Because I would play that. Like, if you don't cook the meal properly, you die? Or what is happening here? Like,
so my first thought was it's taking Iron Chef to a whole new level, and it's going to be like competing chefs, but like your meals, you make them, but then they like fight.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's sort of like create your own battler, but the battler's a meal, and it's like could be anthropomorphic or something crazy like that. I don't know. From's nuts. Or it could be based on my first thought, because Prepare to Dine, and they always do like, and I think there was like red wine. I'm thinking it could be like vampire based game.
Oh, okay.
You like dine on something, or you could be like Cain, Legacy of Cain. Maybe you eat souls.
Yeah.
Maybe you're like devouring other things as opposed to like absorbing souls sort of like passively like you do in the Soul series. You could like actively be like, nah, I'm gonna eat you and take your powers type of stuff, which would be pretty rad. I mean, everybody loves blue magic. I know I love blue magic, and you gotta eat people to get blue magic. So I would like to play a Dark Souls game where you could gain like a different ability depending on who you defeated. Sort of like the weapons give you in Dark Souls, but instead more like imbued stuff. So like throw a spit fire, or like, have a laser. I don't know. There's tons of things you could do. Maybe movement options or something like that that allow you to access new areas, a la, Metroid or something like that. So there's a lot of possibilities there. Or it could be like Cooking Mama, except it's just the Dark Souls dude, and it's just like you mess up and it's just you died.
My first thought though is the soundtrack needs to be like a dark, like alternate version of BR,
and you're like making a pancake and like slowly flipping it. It's like the Dark Souls like crazy epic thing, like
that or it's like a dark version of BR Guest, just a dark version of BR Guest. For some reason, I'm just caught on.
Just put it in minor, man.
Yeah, that, and also the like
put your service to the test. Like, I mean, come on. There's so many different things you could do.
Though, a narration needs to be like, like when they do like bad demons where they just take somebody deep voice and multi-tonal in games. It's just a multi-tonal version of Lumiere just standing there and doing his French voice. It'd be, I just have that vision in my head of just like be our guest, and it's like, what the fuck?
You know what that sounds like? That sounds like Trekkie from Avenue Q. Internet is really, really great.
The internet.
Actually, that's.
Sorry.
Well, no, that's the thing. I did the girl voice as Trekkie instead of doing, because in reality, the song is like, the internet is really, really great. Like, that's the thing. But I did it as Trekkie. I have no idea why I did that. I literally helped my mom, like, direct that show, and I've seen it a million times. It's 5 o'clock. It's not even late. I don't know what's wrong with me, man.
Well,
I am missing references.
We're slowly
it's
coming
terrible.
to the end of our show, so I think we're slowly wrapping this up on just Colin losing his shit right now. So.
Oh man, it'll be really interesting to look at the arc of all the shows as I go from. I'm pretty sure I started in the beginning like, hey, how's it going? I'm Colin, and we're just gonna talk about games. It's gonna be great. And by the end of it, I was like, Metal Gear. Fucking I'm just like
that's all you're gonna say now, just Metal Gear.
I mean, you can apply it to a lot of situations. You can. I mean, when don't you need to reference a giant anthropomorphic nuclear weapon holding robot that may or may not be controlled by nanobots or nanomachines? Yeah. You don't know. Okay. Yeah, I'm checked out. I'm totally checked out.
This podcast is going off the rails, and we're gonna stop it before it crashes right now.
Sounds
Great.
This is so I've been Chris.
And I have been Colin.
This is the Name Not Found podcast, and as always, we don't know what the fuck we're talking about.